Okay, I think we're going to get started now. Thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Eileen Jacob. I'm the admissions director for the LGO program at MIT. Thank you all for tuning in. We are joined by some of my wonderful colleagues, Pam Searle and Sharona Bollinger, who are going to be helping out throughout today's presentation. I'm also joined by some wonderful student and alumni panelists who we will be hearing from a little bit later in the presentation today. And so that being said, please start thinking about questions that you have for our students and alumni to learn more about their experience through various engineering departments and questions that you have for them. Additionally, if you have questions that you have throughout the presentation, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A option on Zoom, and our team will hopefully answer as many questions as we can get to during today's presentation. So thank you all again. The plan for today is to talk for a little while about the engineering departments that students can enroll in as part of their LGO experience and talk a little bit about each one of them. And then again, we'll turn it over to our panelists. So that being said, why don't we get started? So as we probably all know, the LGO program is a 2-year dual degree program, and you are a full student of the MIT Sloan School of Management as well as the MIT Engineering Department, for which you're doing your master's. Again, today we're going to focus specifically on your LGO engineering experience. And LGO partners with 6 engineering departments as well as the Operations Research Center. You are encouraged to choose your field based on your academic background, professional interests, and research goals. Quickly, I'll list the other 6 engineering departments in addition to the Operations Research Center. The others include aeronautics and astronautics, biological engineering, chemical engineering, civil and environmental engineering, electrical engineering and computer science, and mechanical engineering. And so this is a quick sample just to give an idea of what your curriculum during the LGO program could look like. Most engineering courses are about 12 units, and these courses generally meet for 2 sessions per week, sometimes with a lab component and a correspondingly greater expectation of time spent on work outside of class too. While you cannot double count units for the 2 degree requirements, you can use some engineering courses to fulfill the requirements for one of your Sloan non-core courses. So generally speaking, students will take approximately 4 engineering courses throughout their time in the program. Again, this does vary by student and by department. For example, mechanical engineering students need at least 72 units to fulfill their degree requirements, whereas other students need at least 66. We found most of the other students will get to 72 units without a problem anyway. So it really does depend on the courses you're taking throughout your time in the program, and you have a lot of guidance and advising throughout this to make sure that you're navigating your course selection appropriately. So a little bit of an engineering snapshot. The MIT School of Engineering is the largest of MIT's 5 schools, comprising about 70% of the institute's undergrad majors and 45% of graduate students. The School of Engineering supports the real-time and collaborative application of research to industry, and supports and facilitates bridging business and engineering, which is what LGO is all about. The requirements for engineering do vary by departments, but they all have what they all have in common is a required master's thesis that is adequate for their respective engineering discipline, as well as for the School of Management. And in addition, all engineering classwork generally has to be approved by their engineering department, unless, if applicable, students follow one of the pre-approved research areas in their engineering departments. LGO's program office helps facilitate meetings with departmental and individual faculty advisors for the engineering department during your first summer of the program. These meetings should establish guidelines for students to identify appropriate engineering coursework that meets departmental degree requirements and help planning for engineering research areas, which are applicable for, particularly your LGO internship and in developing your thesis. So now we're going to take a closer look at each of the different engineering departments. And we'll talk just for a couple of minutes to give a little bit of an overview for you. First one is Aero Astro. And, generally speaking, candidates typically interested in this department have backgrounds in what you see above. Aviation, particularly licensed pilots are another population. This includes former employees of companies like SpaceX and Virgin Galactic, and can take their careers in a variety of different directions afterward. As you can see from the list, there are extensive array of opportunities of different research area specializations too, depending on what you're interested in. Previous LGO Aero Astro students have had degrees in mechanical engineering, physics, chemical and aerospace engineering, as well as systems engineering. All of the LGO candidates are paired with an Aero Astro faculty advisor during the admissions process. This isn't the same for every department, but for Aero Astro, this is how the process works. So to help in pairing, we do ask Aero Astro applicants to define their research interests that are in line with Aero Astro's research areas to help us, give us a clear idea of the fields of study that you feel match your learning goals for the program. So we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but generally speaking, in your engineering statement that's part of your application, it's good to be as specific as possible about your research interests and/or any faculty who you would like to work with too. Speaking a little bit to work experience in this field, you don't necessarily have to have professional Aero Astro experience. Successful candidates have cited undergraduate projects and internships, for example, as other opportunities to demonstrate your skills. And using your letter of recommendation, this is generally, again, encouraged for candidates who are putting together their technical letter of recommendation. Oftentimes they do ask a former professor. That's strongly encouraged to have that former professor write your technical letter of recommendation, who can speak to your research, skill sets in a lab and a more technical component, even in particular for Aero Astro. So next we're going to talk about bioengineering. This department really focuses on preparing the next generation of scientists and engineers to advance bioscience and biotechnology. And some companies that have been part of a lot of the internship experiences for bioengineering students in the past include Amgen, Boston Scientific, AstraZeneca, Sanofi is another example. You can really go in a lot of different directions too, as you'll see, we continue talking about your internship opportunities within each engineering department. Previous students for this degree have had backgrounds in bioengineering and chemical engineering, as well as pharmacology, as a few examples. Previous experience modeling biological processes is recommended, as you can see here. To complete your bioengineering graduate coursework, students should be able to model, for example, how a drug performs in the body. Background previous experience in bioengineering is nice, but again, not mandatory. Background in bioengineering and biosystems modeling is also important to demonstrate in your application if you have those skills to share with the admissions committee. Okay, so next is chemical engineering. And so chemical engineering, they offer academic programs to prepare students to master physical, chemical, and biological processes, as well as engineering design and synthesis skills in particular. Similar companies are what a lot of students in chemical engineering pursue for their internships. Other examples similar to bioengineering also include Johnson & Johnson, as well as Nissan. The importance of academic rigor, that's always important to show for all of the different degrees and departments for which you're applying. Strong academic background is very important for chemical engineering as well. Previous experience, again, is nice but not mandatory. And again, particularly having any chemical engineering background will be really important to help your application stand out and to show that you have the skill sets to be a strong student in the Chem E department. So civil and environmental engineering, this department identifies the ability to educate and innovate science-based foundations with tangible engineering impact for a variety of societal problems that span across the environment and the infrastructure. So really across the board, a lot of variety of different career opportunities within civil and environmental. And again, this is just a sampling of different industries and functions that students have and can pursue. So previous students for the CEE department have enrolled with degrees in industrial engineering, computer science, mathematics, electrical engineering, civil engineering, and geology. All LGOs are paired with a CEE faculty advisor during the admissions process, similar to Aero-Astro. So students planning to complete one of the CEE research areas have a collection of professors in that research area to choose from. Applicants who would prefer to build their own curriculum should present defined academic and research goals within their engineering statement in their application. And again, it's just good to be as specific as possible if you know the type of research that you want to pursue. So electrical engineering and computer science is next. EECS. It's the largest department at MIT, and they often say that EECS is everywhere. From robots that perform with professional dance troupes to medical electronic devices that harvest energy from differences in body temperature. You could really do a lot, and there's a wide range of different applications if you're an EECS student. With that, you can gauge the variety, again, from the different companies where students pursue their internships. Other examples include Target, National Grid, Amgen as well are some recent examples. So previous LGO EECS students have enrolled with degrees in computer science, physics, applied mathematics, bioengineering, and electrical engineering. In rare cases, students have a background in another engineering discipline with, in that case, with research and work experience in an EECS field. Oops, sorry, I think I'm going a little, some technical difficulties. Sorry, bear with me here. So we're back, we're just finishing up on EECS. Now we'll talk a little bit about mechanical engineering, focuses on advancing science and technology by discovering solutions and designing products and designing engineering workflows too that help to make our world a better place. And there's, again, a pretty wide range of opportunities to pursue for your career within this department too. Other internship company examples include ABB and Nike, National Grid as well. There's also, if you're curious to get the full list of our partner companies, those are listed online if you want to get the full spectrum available for our students. And so previous MECI students have enrolled with degrees in geosciences, aerospace engineering, chemical and civil engineering, chemistry, physics, industrial engineering, even systems engineering too. The department requires proof that students are ready for the graduate level coursework in MIT MECI, and more details on what each class listed roughly compares to at MIT are on the website. So if you want to see what these compare to, you can take a closer look on online. Applicants who did not major in mechanical engineering in their undergrad studies are encouraged to show in the application, which classes meet these prereqs. Some LGO students have taken all of these classes during their undergrad study. However, there's other ways to go about this, and some students have completed this coursework by enrolling, in part-time courses at a local university to complete those missing courses before they start at MIT. You don't need to declare any official research area you'd like to focus on when applying, but the department would like to know what academic and professional interests have led each candidate to select MECI as the place where they want to be. Okay, so lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about operations research. the focus around the ORC is what it's called, is to impact the world by educating students in the field of operations analytics, and generate new knowledge through research that can be used in educating future generations of students. And as you can see here, the research area specializations that are listed, these are the variety of different topics offered through the ORC that students in this research center can pursue. So a strong demonstration of mathematical skills are particularly important for the ORC. Research interests, as it says here in ops research, those are also important to demonstrate as you're putting together your application and want to be considered for this center. So we're going to shift gears a little bit now that you've gotten a taste of just a little bit about each of our engineering departments. Some things to keep in mind: our application deadlines will be finalized and available later this summer. However, we don't anticipate a big change in the timeline from previous years. So round 1 will be late September, early October, and round 2 will be in early December. The MIT School of Engineering only accepts LGO applicants in the LGO's round 2. So if you apply through the School of Engineering, there's something to keep in mind. You will be considered for LGO first, of course. And if you are not admitted to the LGO program, the engineering department will consider your application for their master's program. This goes the same way with the Sloan School of Management. You can also choose to apply to LGO via their online application. And in that case, again, if you're not admitted to LGO, applicants are then considered specifically for the Sloan MBA, full-time MBA program. So just keep that in mind. Given the engineering applicants are only accepted in round 2, we plan to admit the majority of the class in round 2, but encourage you to apply when your application is ready. If you would prefer to apply in round 1, that's also an option. You may wait to receive your decision a little bit longer than should you apply in round 2. However, it always depends each year on the applicant pool, and we also don't have a preference about which round students decide to apply in. It's the same evaluation process and the same chances for admission, regardless of whether or not you apply in round 1 versus round 2. So the application components, as you can see, this is a brief list of the different topics and areas to cover. I won't go into too many details about all of them, just for the sake of time and keeping things focused on engineering. So I'll talk a little bit through that lens. But we are looking, again, for mission-driven students who have a history of leadership and impact, and who are also talented engineers who can use their analytical tools to solve complex problems in a variety of different industries. And so, that being said, to talk specifically through engineering, the engineering statement, that's, again, it's good to be as specific as possible about the research that you're interested in or the faculty with whom you're interested in working, because, it shows a strong commitment to the department that you've done your research and you've put some thought into this being the next logical step in your professional development. So as I've mentioned throughout talking about the other engineering departments, being as specific as you can about which department, which research areas you're most interested in, potentially which faculty you'd like to work with, can really help your application stand out. Other factors to consider too, it's not listed specifically here, but within the online application, we will also be asking for and evaluating your academics and standardized test scores too. These criteria are important to ensure your quantitative readiness for the program, gauging your analytics skills. We often get a lot of questions about, is there a minimum score or a minimum GPA? There is not. It's a very holistic application process in which all of the things you see listed are taken into account and play a role in your admissions decision. So that's important to keep in mind. We do have different stats to give you an idea of previous class profiles and to give you an idea of target scores to shoot for example. The middle 80% GMAT range, for example, is between a 710 and a 760. For those who are looking more at quant prep. If you're thinking about taking the GRE, the middle 80% range for those scores is between a 161 and a 170. GPA wise, again, this does vary, and there's not one GPA that can solely make or break your chances of admission. Typically, the average GPA has usually been around a 3.7 for candidates. So again, as I mentioned before, it's really a personal preference as far as when you decide to apply, when you're ready. We recommend waiting until submitting the strongest possible application, where you feel like you have put everything together, you don't feel rushed, and you want to make sure that it's done right. As far as recommenders and talking particularly about your technical recommender, we advise you to select someone who really knows you and can speak specifically to, with examples about your engineering abilities, how you are in a research and a lab setting, your leadership potential and potential for future career growth. These are all very important. It's not necessarily just about the title of your recommender, where they work, but really the details and the depth of content that they can provide to give us an idea of who you are at work or in your academic background. Okay, so I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing me talk, so I'm going to turn it over now to our wonderful student and alumni panel. I think it would be great if we could just have each of you go around to first introduce yourself, maybe a little bit about where you're from and which department you're in, and then we'll go from there with some questions from our listeners. So that being said, Ankur, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hey, everyone. So my name is Ankur Amlani. I'm an LGO 20 mechanical engineering, so just graduated last month. I'm originally from California and worked in oil and gas for about 6 years before coming to MIT. I did my undergraduate at UCLA and graduated in 2012 as a chemical engineer. Thanks.
Thanks, Ankur. Juliet, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. I'm Juliet Chevalier. I'm an aero-astro student. I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, but I've lived in the Boston area for the past 10 years. I have absolutely no aero background. My background is in self-driving cars. So for people thinking about aero-astro who are not aero-astro backgrounds, we can definitely chat. So I did that for about 5 years. I originally went to Wellesley College and Olin College of Engineering for my undergrad, where I studied applied math and mechanical engineering. And I think that's about it. Good to meet y'all.
All right, I think that leaves me. Hi, everyone. My name is Franklin Morgan. I am an LGO 21 in civil engineering. Originally from Miami, Florida, I went to college at Duke University and studied mechanical engineering, and was out of undergrad for 5 years before joining LGO. So for the first 2 years, I was working for a healthcare software company in Madison, Wisconsin, and then spent the last 3 years before school working for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in supply chain and operations.
Great, thank you, everybody. Before we kick it to our questions from all of you, I thought we could start with one that hopefully would be useful for everyone to hear is, when you were applying to LGO, how did you decide which engineering program to select? And can you talk a little bit about that decision process? Whoever would like to go first, you can jump in.
I can start. Sure. So I was really interested in, I'd been working in the hospital for close to 2 years, and really enjoyed the operations and the process improvement, but I felt like I didn't know what I felt like the best practices weren't happening in the hospital, and I didn't know what those were. So I really started looking into graduate programs and just thought LGO was the perfect mix of engineering and business to bring that operational aspect together with leadership skills and communication. So for me, I first looked at the ORC because of like the aspect of data analytics and a focus on system optimization. But after doing some research and talking to folks in LGO, I zeroed in on civil engineering, and I would definitely recommend if you're not totally sure where you fit, taking a deeper look at civil engineering, because the scope of it is a lot broader than kind of your general understanding of civil engineering. So for me, I was initially really drawn to the supply chain aspect of it. There's really, really strong professors in supply chain and transportation, and started to learn more about that, and thought that civil was a great place to get that like practical systems knowledge, and also be able to branch out into analytics and optimization and other topics like that.
Great, thank you. Encore or Juliet, would you like to go next?
I can go ahead. Yeah, so like I said, my background is in applied math and mechanical engineering, but now I'm an aeroastro. So the reason for that is that I started my career in self-driving cars, and I was especially in system integration. So I always kind of lived between hardware and software. So although I had a very big hardware background, my career really was towards software. So I became much more adept at software, at programming, and just reading software and all that jazz. So actually, when I applied to, when I was looking to grad school, I wasn't sure if I should go for MECI or if I should go for EECS. And then I ended up doing neither. So the reason for that is both, or all three, MECI, EECS, and aeroastro, in my opinion, all three of those touch on robotics pretty well. And I want to stay in robotics. And I specifically want to focus on autonomy at a systems level. So I'm not as interested in control theory, which I would go to MECI for, or algorithmic artificial intelligence, which I would go to EECS for, but I'm interested in kind of understanding the whole picture and how, you know, we can form equitable and ethical robotics in the future. So aeroastro, just like Franklin was saying for civil and environmental, aeroastro kind of has a lot more to it than you would think. So it has a huge systems engineering kind of area and research interests. My professor specifically is very into systems engineering. There's a lot of people in my lab who have more automotive background than aeroastro. So as I learned about it, I decided that the aeroastro department was kind of a better fit for my systems engineering mindset, instead of deep diving into either MECI or EECS. So yes, that's why I chose it. I did have the luxury of taking some MIT classes in advance, so that helped me make that decision. But I'm able to kind of do as much software as I want to or not. So I think aeroastro gives me a good balance of all the different interests that I have.
Great, thanks. Encore, you've got the most perspective as an alum now. Love to hear from you.
Sure. So I think, you know, coming from oil and gas and given my undergraduate background, the two engineering departments that probably made the most sense at the outset were Chemi and MECI. Again, just based on, you know, my past experience. And so I was trying to decide between those two. And I think probably two of the most useful resources for me as I was trying to decide were, one, just talking to current students, and the LGO program office was really helpful in helping connect me with people who have backgrounds similar to mine, who kind of gotten into both of those majors and were exploring their careers. And then the other resource that was really helpful was looking at the repository of past internships on the LGO website. So I got to kind of see, you know, what set of partner companies were LGOs interning at who were in the Chemi program, and what set of partner companies were they interning at from MECI. And from there, I kind of decided that MECI would be a good fit for me, and that's how I kind of honed in on it. And those conversations were really helpful in helping me finalize that.
Great, thank you, everybody. Pam and Shrona, do you have some questions from our listeners that we could ask the panelists?
Sure. One question is kind of for applicants who are deciding between civil engineering and mechanical engineering, specifically when interested in manufacturing or supply chain. Can you kind of talk about the pros and cons of each of those departments?
Sure, I can start because I I studied mechanical undergrad and then moved into civil, so definitely understand that space. Just as an example, to kind of help think about like a practical application. So I'm currently on my internship at Johnson & Johnson, and J&J has been a partner company for a long time, and they're really great about being willing to take a number of different students from different engineering departments and kind of work with that individual to find a project that really works both for their department and for their particular interests. So my project is focused on reevaluating how we're manufacturing a new product and finding a way to do it more efficiently and make it more flexible so that J&J will be able to like expand on that in the future. And so for me as a civil engineer, my focus is really on the overall manufacturing process from beginning to end and how we're going to change the steps and change the flow of materials from raw materials through to finished product. Whereas if I were in mechanical engineering, I think I would have had the opportunity to work on the same project, but I'd be focused more on a specific aspect of that process. So I'm working in contact lenses. So like the process of heat sealing the package to make sure that you can create like a sterile barrier is something that's really important for this current process. So I know Taylor Robinson, who was the J&J intern last year and was in mechanical engineering, was really focused on understanding that specific aspect of the process. So that was my understanding going in. I really wanted to focus more on the overall system and the overall process and kind of process improvement, whereas my understanding of mechanical is more specific to the mechanics of what's going on. But I'm sure Ankur can add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Franklin. I think Franklin summed it up pretty well. That kind of notion of maybe supply chain versus manufacturing. If I had to make a broad generalization, I would say like if you're really looking at supply chain as your key area of interest, I think that civil is really a good place, and that systems level view. And then on the mechanical side, there's more of a manufacturing track, and some of the courses that you're going to find are things like statistical process control or the shop classes where you build a car and you race it and you get a really in-depth understanding of the various manufacturing process steps. And there's also some analytics focused classes where you're diving into manufacturing data specifically. So I would say that's probably where you start to see that distinction. I'll also highlight there's definitely areas of overlap. So there's many LGO internships where you're going to actually end up doing the same work as a mechanical or a civil engineer, and they kind of meet the requirements for technical rigor and research worthiness in either department. So you may end up making your decision more based on coursework, like your past coursework, the coursework you're interested in taking, and your existing qualifications, as opposed to the content of the internship itself.
Great, we have another question from the audience. Are LGO students able to take advantage of travel opportunities while enrolled? And maybe if the panelists can just talk about both travel opportunities and just other opportunities outside of the classroom that you've taken advantage of?
I guess I can start. Oh. So I think one important travel opportunity that all LGO students take advantage of is domestic plant trek. And your current circumstances notwithstanding, generally that occurs in the January of your first school year, and you go as an entire class of about 50 people. You end up visiting 10 to 15 partner companies over the course of 2 to 3 weeks across the country. And you get to see their operations, learn a little bit about their culture, meet alumni, and then also just bond as a class. So that I think is a pretty formative and just enjoyable time for anyone who's in the LGO program. There's also other LGO sponsored or at least LGO associated travel opportunities like international plant trek, which happens in the spring, and it's, you know, focused, like East Asia is one example, or South America is another example where students went. So those are some of the LGO focused travel opportunities, and maybe I'll let the others chime in on some of the others that they've done.
Sure, I can jump in. Definitely agree with the kind of like how great of an experience the LGO travel was. It's really up to you what you prioritize. I've definitely had a lot of opportunity to travel within Sloan as well. So I went on a pre-function trip to get to know like other LGOs and Sloanies before school started, to the Swiss Alps, which was awesome. It was like more of a fun trip. And then I'm also really interested in staying in the healthcare space. So I was working with a group at Sloan to plan a trip over to Europe to look at single payer health systems, which unfortunately didn't happen because of the virus. But there's really a lot of opportunity to travel, both just to meet more people and also to kind of expand your learning while you're at school. And then there's also opportunities to go international, or obviously go to a new city for internship. Again, kind of limited right now, but I would have, had things been more normal, would have been in Ireland for this, or for part of this internship, which is a cool opportunity just to kind of get some work experience outside of the US.
Great, thanks everybody. Other questions that our listeners have?
Yes, there is one about what was your favorite engineering class so far?
I'll go for it. So I've only done one semester on campus, so I have one to choose from, but it was a great course, so I'll go ahead with it. I'm on internship this past semester, so that's why I've only done one fall semester so far. So within AeroAstro, I took a course called Visual Navigation for Autonomous Vehicles, or VNAV. And that's a really, really cool course. So it's essentially, it's mostly computer science. So you have to be very, very willing to do a lot of computer science, but you get to do a full suite of every single algorithm that's ever used for visual navigation. So understanding object detection and classification, understanding how landmarks are part of path planning and part of SLAM and all that jazz is really, really cool. And you also get to spend some time on a physical drone. You get to see it indoors, kind of doing whatever trajectories you've planned. So that's really cool. It is a huge commitment. It was about 16 to 20 hours a week for me outside of class, writing between 500 to several thousand lines of code. So it's a huge commitment, but it was a ton of fun, and I'm really glad I got to do it. I'll probably take easier courses from now on, but I'm really glad I got that experience, and I made a lot of great friends who are PhD candidates in a lot of different fields and things like that. So it was a really awesome class to take advantage of, especially my first semester.
I'll go next. I think, for me, I'll also say that one of the classes I found most interesting was a computer science oriented class, although it's maybe a little bit less intense than Juliet's. The one that I took and really enjoyed, and as an aside, regardless of your engineering major, you have an opportunity to take classes across the engineering school, usually at least one as part of your degree requirement. So that's really nice. And the one that I took for that was artificial intelligence. So that's kind of the quintessential MIT artificial intelligence class. It's got 300 plus students in it, and it basically gives you a broad overview of just the kind of evolution of AI techniques over the years. So it starts with some of the basic stuff, search and knowledge-based systems, and then you start to kind of advance towards some of the more supervised learning and neural networks, and some of those hot buzzwordy techniques we start to hear now. And for graduate students, you also get to do some weekly readings just around AI ethics and some of the implications and higher level design decisions as you're starting to conceive how these systems are used in various contexts. So I thought it was a great way for someone like me who doesn't have a very intense computing background to get some exposure to just an overview of artificial intelligence in general.
So my favorite was, I took it mostly because of the professor. His name's Arnold Barnett, and he is definitely a fan favorite among LGOs. He actually taught, at least for the 21s, taught our like first ever class for over the summer. And he taught us probability over the summer. I took kind of the next level of that. So it was called, I think, applied probability and stochastic models. And for me, I mean, the major benefit, like truly from all of the classes that I've taken, is just how applied they are and how relevant to, you know, like the job that I want to have in the future into operations. And this was definitely no exception. We talk a lot about, you know, statistics, and when you're looking at how like products flow through a system or how people like operate within a system, there's obviously a lot of like variability, and there's a lot that you can do to model that and simulate that in real life. So this was just an opportunity to like really deep dive into that, and for me, shore up my probability skills and also kind of take it to the next level. So I really enjoyed that class.
Our next question. Yep. Our next question is, how did doing a dual degree impact your MBA experience? So did you find yourself spending more time on coursework than others in your MBA cohort?
I can start. I think this is probably true for any MBA student, graduate student. The entire experience is a time management exercise. You constantly have to be making intentional choices about what you want to prioritize and deprioritize, and that definitely plays in being a dual degree student. So you will take classes that are going to be a little bit more time consuming, and sometimes you will make some trade-offs in terms of how you're spending the rest of your time. But I think what's really cool is that a lot of those classes end up giving you exposure to MIT as an institution in a way that a lot of other students don't necessarily get. You know, Sloan is amazing, and you make all these great connections, all these great professors, but there's an entire world beyond Sloan and MIT that in 2 years you kind of only scrape the surface of. So yes, you will spend more time, but I think it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Ankur said. It's really up to you as far as how much you want to focus on what in which semester. So like I said, that course that I took was really intense. So my first semester, I kind of took a little bit more of a backseat on the business side and went really hard on my engineering side. And I did that intentionally because it was a course semester. So I knew what courses I was taking then and what I would take in the future. And I'm intentionally in future semesters going to spend much more time on the business side and take it a little easier on the engineering side. So it really depends on what you want to get out of it. I wanted to make some connections on the PhD engineers in my technical courses. So I was networking maybe just in a different way than some Sloanies would. But you know, I'm going to now be pivoting towards the more classic Sloanie experience. So I'm going to be kind of digging more on the business side. So like Ankur said, I think it's what you want it to be and what you decide. Each semester you can kind of change it up a bit, but you'll naturally have at least a little bit more work than probably your average Sloanie, just because the nature of 2 degrees. But I don't think it's limiting. I think it's, again, what you want it to be. So if you want to coast a little bit on engineering, you actually could kind of do that and really have a more typical Sloan experience, or you could do the reverse and go really hard in engineering and kind of coast on the business. So it's really up to you. Or you could try hard on everything. So just like anything, you can just choose what's most important to you.
Yeah, I would agree with everything. The only thing I'll add is I think for me the value of like just the incredible support system that is LGO really like makes the whole thing possible and worth it. I think there's a lot to be said for having that summer just as a group of, 45 to 50 people where you get to know each other and like work together and kind of figure out, at least at some level, like how the next 2 years are going to go. And I think that really helps like set you up to be successful when the rest of the Sloanies come on campus in the fall. And it kind of like helps ease you into, figuring out how to manage like all the crazy time constraints that Ankur was talking about.
Okay, so for our next question, I was hoping everyone could kind of speak to the process of choosing engineering classes and sort of the decision making behind that. Departments kind of vary in flexibility, so if you could speak to how it was within your department.
I can start. So civil, I think, is definitely on the much more flexible end of things. So we, in addition to the courses that you take over the summer, we have to take 4 additional civil engineering courses, or 4 additional engineering courses, and I think 3 of those have to be in the civil department. There's definitely a lot of help because civil is so broad in kind of figuring out what you might be interested in. So there are 3 or 4 different tracks. One is supply chain, transportation. I think there's like energy and the environment, and then a more traditional civil engineering one. And those really aren't, like, you're not held to them really in any way. The most that like your advisor asks is that you kind of have like a plan or a reason for why you would be taking those classes. But it was really helpful for me to understand, okay, if my focus is supply chain, like this track help me understand like what classes might be useful for that. For me, it's really just been like reading through all the course descriptions and talking to people, and I really wanted to get that like high level system overview and understanding of like improving operations. And it's mostly just been choosing classes and then trying them out for the first couple of weeks of the semester and going from there.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what Franklin said. Aeroastro is also pretty flexible, if you will. I think we have 4 courses, and actually only 2 of them have to be Aeroastro, so you can kind of go into other departments if you'd like to. Like Eileen had said at the beginning, Aeroastros get a like one-on-one pairing with an advisor, an academic advisor in the summer. So you already start talking with your advisor in the summer about your interests and things like that. So they can definitely help navigate you if you don't know kind of what you want to pursue as far as things. The other thing is that Aeroastro, because it's kind of so diverse, but also kind of a small department, they do this thing, which is for better or for worse, I suppose. And I apologize if there's a truck passing behind me, but they have courses that are offered every other, I made a terrible decision. They offer courses every other year sometimes, so that will influence, especially when you take something. So there's some courses that I really wanted to take that are only offered every other fall, so I very specifically had to take my very difficult course right away, even though maybe I wouldn't have if I had all the stars aligned in my favor. So that's part of it, is you have to kind of know, and your advisor could help you a lot with this, is what are offered every year, what's offered only fall, what's offered only spring, and you kind of have to be a little bit strategic depending on how big or small your department is. But your advisor, especially in Aeroastro, will help you a lot. And then, yeah, the coursework guide, just reading through the courses. And then on top of that, MIT has subject evaluations at the end of each semester. Those are super helpful on the engineering side, I found, to get an idea of how people like the course, how people like the professor, and also how much time they spend outside of the class. Again, my course, that took me 16 to 20 hours outside of class. The reviews did say that it would take about that long outside of class, so I knew what I was getting into early on, which is really good, because if I didn't, I think I would have been very unpleasantly surprised. So there's a ton of resources to help you make that decision.
Great. We have another question.
Juliet, we didn't get any ambient noise, by the way, so it was good. So I think to generalize degree requirements, I think it's reasonable to expect that you'll probably take about 6 engineering courses in total, 2 of which are part of the LGO core curriculum, and you get them out of the way in the first summer, and they're engineering math classes. So you kind of have discretion over about 4, 1 of which you can take outside your department. Again, it varies, but that's probably just a generalization. So that leaves, like maybe 3 classes within your major, give or take. And different departments have different degrees of restriction on that. So for MECI, you have a lot of flexibility. There's some requirements like they need to have the right level of technical rigor, but beyond that, you can kind of pick and choose. And you're going to be subject, like Juliet mentioned, to what's offered during the terms that you're around. So it's helpful to kind of know which classes are generally spring, every other year, etc. And although MIT does let you kind of have some control over your curriculum, like you can actually kind of shape things if you get enough support. So one really good example of that is a few other students and myself, we felt like we wanted to take a statistical process control class, and nothing really in that area was offered. So we got together and about 9 of us emailed the professor who normally teaches the class in that particular term, and he said, let me see what I can do. And he actually put together an online offering of the class for us to take that semester. And we were able to, get all that material and all that learning for something that otherwise would not have been offered. So you can kind of influence things. I wouldn't expect that in every single case, but there's examples of being able to do that.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing all of your wisdom and insights here. As we finalize the webinar today, just thought we could end with some brief closing remarks from each of you. You're thinking about where these candidates are in evaluating, applying to grad schools, thinking about LGO. What advice do you have for them as they evaluate their next steps?
I can start. So I would say the biggest thing is there's lots of people who kind of are ahead of you and have gone through this already. So don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure, myself and any of the other panelists would be happy to talk with you in more detail about our experiences, and the program office can definitely connect you with other students. So we're happy to share, and yeah, don't be shy. Thanks.
Yeah, I would say, I think I totally echo that, and I think we're always willing to reach out and have a conversation. Don't sell yourself short. I remember being like so nervous joining these calls, like not being sure if I had the right background or if I had like the right perspective coming into it. I think like put yourself out there and be willing to give it a shot. And I think LGO really like is looking for like that diversity of thought and of experience, and it definitely like shows through when you're on campus and interacting with the rest of your students. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think this is it's a nice time right now when you're in the application phase, because you get to start reflecting a lot and thinking about what you've done in your career so far and where you want to go, and you get to decide if you're going to pivot or whatnot. This is like a really big moment, kind of, not to scare you at all, but it's really, really cool time for you to decide kind of where you want to go and what that trajectory is. And because your time on campus is pretty short, right? 2 degrees in 2 years is kind of insane. I hope you guys are spending the time thinking of like, why are you doing this program? What's it going to give for you? And what can you get out of it? And what can you bring to the program? I think if you can articulate, how the program and you can join forces, if you will, to give the future career path that you want. And you find a way to understand what's the right engineering department for that, what's the right kind of courses for that, what's the kind of internship you would hope for that. If you could think of all those things a little bit right now and think about what you're passionate about and show that, you'll be really, really well off when you start on campus. So good luck and enjoy the reflection period.
Thank you. That is fantastic advice from all of you. And thank you, Julia, Franklin, and Encore for your time today and sharing your thoughts. We really appreciate your help and connecting with our candidates. So thank you. And thank you to everybody who's been listening in today. We really appreciate you tuning in, and please feel free, as you've heard, we are here to help, and we're happy to talk one-on-one, or please feel free to email us anytime to ask questions or to connect with other students. Please also check out our website for future events online. We have a lot of other webinars and online chats and other ways to connect with the LGO community coming up. So we appreciate everyone tuning in, and thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day.